Loved the game last year. Obviously, it went Colorado's way. Who knows what it would have been like if Nebraska could have gotten their first game in. Obviously that was a weird start to the year with the game getting canceled early. That game is college football to me. I grew up, 20 minutes south of Boulder. One of my first games, not my first game, but one of my first games was my dad taking me to a Nebraska-Colorado game. I didn't miss many as a kid when Nebraska came to Boulder. It was certainly one of the most impactful days of my life when Colorado beat them in 2001 because I was still playing minor league baseball. I was sitting in the stands kind of lamenting minor league baseball and how much I hated it with my best friend. And I can remember it was around halftime or the third quarter. We were talking during like one of the TV timeouts, and he was like, why don't you just quit baseball? And that was honestly the first time I'd even thought about it, quitting baseball. And then we charged the field, and we're on the field, and I was like, maybe I should quit baseball. So it's certainly a game that has impacted my life in a positive fashion.
Give us a scouting report on Colorado since you know them so well.
Well, it's actually a bit of an unknown with a new coach. With Mel Tucker there, I think that he's going to want to have a very unique identity that revolves around toughness, getting better in the second half. They were terrible in the second half, in particular in the fourth quarter a year ago. I will tell you they've got a very experienced and talented quarterback in Steven Montez, and I would argue the best skill position player maybe in the entire Pac-12 and a top 10 NFL draft pick in Laviska Shenault. He's that good, so it's not a bare cupboard, and I mean they've got some players, Landman on the other side on the defense. So Nebraska's going to have to play well, and I know one thing about that program. Speaking of Colorado, they've had this game circled for a long time to get Nebraska back in. It was great last year to go to Lincoln and renew the rivalry, certainly, but a lot of people up there around that program have been looking at this game for a long time, so they will get Colorado's best effort, there's no doubt.
What do you think of just all the attention the ticket sales have gotten already? I mean, I think Colorado's tried to do a lot of things to stop Nebraska fans to get in there.
Yeah, and I know their athletic director, Rick George, he and I have talked about it a little bit, and he asked me my thoughts, and I said, hey, listen, it's not just that game. They've got a great home schedule overall. Air Force is coming to Boulder, which is a very unique – I mean, we didn't and haven't played Air Force in a long time, so that's a game that a lot of people will be excited about. USC is coming to Boulder this year. Obviously, you got the Colorado State game. That's kind of a pseudo-home game in Denver. So I think they're, rather than just trying to say, hey, let's keep the red out, which was always hard to do, in that one game, I think they were trying to focus on their overall home schedule and how strong it is with Mel's first year. And candidly, I think that might have been part of the decision to make a change, is to create some excitement for a year in which they had such a great home schedule, really with the cornerstone of that schedule being Nebraska coming back to town.
What do you think of Mel Tucker saying, what has Nebraska done lately, about people talking about that?
The one thing I appreciate about Mel is that he will say things like that, and he will instill a culture of why not us, and who cares type of mentality, because I think Colorado needs that. Like I said, they need to be tougher and with thicker skin to play at a level that they need to potentially win their division this year. But I will say this: while true, watch out. Be careful what you wish for, because Nebraska is a heck of a team this year. I'm going to pick them to win the West Division in the Big Ten. Adrian Martinez is a uniquely talented quarterback, in particular in that system. He seems to fit not only from a schematic standpoint, but also from a philosophical and personal standpoint with what Scott wants in a leader and in a player for that team. So that's a team. And here's another thing, too. It is so rare to get 18 to 22-year-olds to buy in after going 0-6. It almost never happens. You lose kids so fast. I mean, you lose them to Fortnite, much less, a start like that, losing in overtime at Northwestern. So to see the character of the coaching staff and the players last year, that they would continue to fight and scratch and get better, win 4 of their last 6, play Ohio State right down to the wire, really play a great quality game in Columbus, showed a lot of character and integrity in that program. I've always been a believer in Scott. I think you guys know that. I've been very bullish on his tenure at Nebraska. I think a lot of that will come to fruition. They've got a great schedule this year for them, missing some of those teams out of the East, playing a lot of the contenders in the West Division at home. Really, their two toughest road tests is going to be at Boulder and then Minnesota. So while Colorado might want to talk or what has Nebraska done, watch out, because Nebraska's going to come to town with a team that's candidly better than Colorado. So Colorado would have to pull an upset to win.
Coach Osborne never called this a rivalry, but
yeah, I know.
But
trust me,
Colorado people do.
Trust me.
And so
I mean, I listen.
I
I can't say I love Nebraska, but I've always respected Nebraska to the utmost. I grew up 20 minutes south of Boulder. That is a rivalry. And when he changed his vote after playing Georgia Tech in the bowl game in 1990, it became even a bigger rivalry, and we had to share that national title. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sure some of that is revisionist history, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But the Colorado that I know and love was built on the fact that they targeted Nebraska as their rival. I think it was incredibly smart from Bill McCartney's standpoint to look at the power in the Big Eight and say we've got to take them down in order to go where we wanted to go. I believe that if he didn't do that, and if he hadn't have pointed at Nebraska, they never would have won the Big Eight in '89, never would have won the national title in '90, never would have had a Heisman Trophy winner in 1994, and candidly, from '89 to '96, you could argue that Nebraska-Colorado was the preeminent rivalry in the sport in terms of the team that was going to go on and ultimately compete for the national championship, in multiple years during that stretch. So Miami and Florida State obviously could lay argument in those years, but Nebraska-Colorado was the foundation of the original Big 12, and so to see the game again, I'm going to be thrilled.